Okay, a very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all our distinguished attendees, panel of speakers, and colleagues from SGSS and SBI who have joined us from various time zones across the globe for this very unique webinar on India Live on T+1, a market perspective. I trust you all are taking care and staying safe in the current environment, and hopefully we are progressing towards a COVID-free world very soon. For the benefit of our first-time viewers, allow me to present a brief overview of SBI-SG Global Securities Services Private Limited. SBI-SG is a joint venture between two leading banks, State Bank of India and Society General. State Bank of India, as you all know, is India's largest commercial bank with a balance sheet size of over 50 trillion INR and as a financial services conglomerate with presence across all financial services in India. And Society General is again among the prominent banks in European Union headquartered at France. And again, it's a financial services conglomerate, a global custodian, and a significant player in the capital markets across the globe. SBI-SG is a leading provider of custodial services, fund accounting services, professional clearing member services, designated depository participant services, and allied services to domestic as well as foreign institutional investors for over a decade. And it's our endeavor to bring thought leadership initiatives besides offering client-centric, digital-driven solutions across all client segments, be it FPI, FDI, AIF, mutual funds, PMS, etc., showcasing the opportunities while assisting and addressing the challenges. I would be delighted to hear from you of how we can support your initiatives. We will also keep you posted on our footprint in the GIFT, Gift City, which is a fast-growing jurisdiction. Over the years, we have scaled several new peaks and crossed several milestones in our journey. Currently, we are servicing an AUC of over 160 billion US dollar and AUA of more than USD 120 billion. We have also been rated by the global custodian. SBI-SG is the only custodian to offer investors the choice to select from three models of relationship: contractual models for local custody, master custody, and global custody agreements. To the best of my knowledge, no other custodian provides such flexibility to inflow-outflow investors. We support these flexible operational models for custody, clearing, and settlement. As India moves to be a T+1 country, we at SBI-SG offer diverse solutions. Being a leading market intermediary and serving institutional clients, SBI-SG have readied ourselves both in terms of technology, resources, as well as internal workflow processes, including risk management and compliances to handle client services in the T+1 era in line with the changing regulations. Do expect many more client-centric solutions being rolled out over the next few months, while we look forward to your suggestions from your side. At this point of time, I thank you for taking time to be here today virtually. Most probably, the virtual meetings will slowly taper off and we will come into physical meetings over a period of time shortly. But today you are here with us virtually. Thank you so much for that, for this very topical webinar as the Indian Capital Markets Regulator SEBI introduced T+1 settlement system with effect from 25th February 2022. There is a planned and a gradual transition, but very soon we will find ourselves in the thick of it. We at SBI-SG Global Securities Services are very proud to bring this webinar to you at this very important time. Not only that we are bringing this webinar to you, but also very special panel of speakers who are actively involved in the process from the very stage of ideation, conceptualization, policy framing, and threshing out the modalities for implementation, etc. I believe that we at SBI-SG are the first custodian to bring together a very diverse panel comprising a leading clearing house, a leading foreign brokerage house, as well as an international association to cover the topic. Nobody could have had more hands-on and insightful information on this topic than the panelists that I'm going to introduce to you very shortly. So the panels today, that is the speakers today on the panel, or let me introduce firstly Mr. Vikram Kothari, Managing Director, NSE Clearing Limited. Mr. Vikram Kothari has worked in the areas of product development, operations, risk management, and sales in the stock exchange, custody, clearing, and banking space for more than 25 years. Prior to his current role as Managing Director of NSE Clearing Limited in India, he has worked with organizations like JP Chase, HSBC, NSE in various capacities. He has joined NSE Clearing in November 2017. He is a graduate from Mumbai University and a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. The second speaker on the panel is Mr. Sujit Kadakia, Managing Director, Head of India Office, Society General Securities India. Mr. Sujit joined Society General in November 1996 and is now in the 26th year of engagement with SG Group. Sujit is currently accountable and responsible for Securities India entity overall deliverables. Sujit worked at SG Singapore for close to 4 years and at SDGSE Bangalore for close to 8 years prior to his current role. Sujit Kadakia is a chartered accountant by profession, having over 31 years of experience and has worked with HSBC prior to joining SG. And finally, we have Mr. Viraj Kulkarni, founder Pivot Management Consultancy. His rich work experience spans across 3 of the top 5 global custodians for over 12 years as country head of security services with Citibank, both in India and Switzerland, JP Chase, and BNP Paribas. Mr. Viraj is a director of Pivot Consultants Cyprus Limited. He is an independent director of a leading asset management company in India. He is the CEO of TSAG UK. Viraj founded Pivot in the year 2015. And before I hand over the mic to Mr. Vikram Kothari to come on to start with the panel discussion, I request my colleague, Mr. Vineet Potnis, SVP and Head Business Development at SBI-SG, to provide a brief outline of T+1 framework. Thank you, and over to you, Vineet.
Thank you, madam, and a warm welcome to all the attendees and participants of this very exciting webinar on the T+1 settlement cycle, which is a historic moment in the annals of capital markets, the first of its kind globally to be introduced. And it's a natural progression of SEBI, the regulators' objectives, key objectives of development of securities markets and investor protection. Having made a landmark change from T+3 to T+2 way back in 2003, we have come a long way and introducing the historic change for a T+1 settlement cycle. Essentially, this is not just about a fundamental change, but from an investor perspective, it gives a lot of protection and for the entire ecosystem, also in terms of operational cost reduction. It is also something that is kind of opportune, and the time has rightly come. Given the enabling environment is in place. India, as we all know, is now almost a $4 trillion market cap, among the top 5 economies in terms of market capitalization, and has the diversity of market participants, has the liquidity depth, And the enabling technology is also in place for implementing this kind of a change. And this bold decision has been implemented. It will be implemented further in one step at a time, so as to have a smooth transition. Without much ado, and to give more details and discuss about this topic, I now invite the first speaker on the panel, Vikram Kothari, MD and CEO of NSE Clearing, to take it forward from here. Thank you very much, and Vikram, over to you.
Thank you, Umaji. Thank you, Vineet, and thank you, SBI-SG, for giving us this opportunity to be on this webinar with your clients and investors. So just to give you, I think, Vineet, you did touch upon a brief background of the settlement cycle evolution. So in fact, I would like to start giving a perspective of where we were and where we are and where we ought to be. So if we look at it, India has come a long way in the compression of its settlement cycle. We were at T plus 14, or as people used to say in the early 90s, it could technically be T plus anything. So we were in that phase in the early 90s. With the setup of NSE, one of the key priorities was to bring investor ease and safety in the trading ecosystem. Hence, NSE moved to T plus 5 in 2000. NSE was set up in 95-96. When we started trading, we started with the T plus 14 cycle, and somewhere in 2000, we initiated the T plus 5 settlement. And then it was a very, very quick progression into T plus 2, where in T plus 3 was brought in 2002. And subsequently, I think it was April 2003 when we actually moved to T plus 2 cycle. India was running this T plus 2 cycle now for 19 years. Now this new, and this was always, it is not only now in September 2021 that this discussion about moving further from T plus 2 to T plus 1 got initiated. In fact, I've been having these discussions on and off with the regulators, or NSE has been having these discussions with the regulators on and off now almost for about 4 to 5 years, which I've been a part of. And somewhere the key background was the technological evolution that had happened in India. And I think the big impetus also came in the form of India adopting the digital payment mechanism in a big way across the country. India remains a very, very retail kind of a market. Hence, post all these discussions and deliberations, the new regulations were published in September 2021, which permitted exchanges to move at their choice. I explained that at their choice a little better to T plus 1 settlement. And what this actually meant was that the regulatory framework permitted separate securities or a single security also to be placed at T plus 1 as well as in T plus 2, depending upon what each exchange wanted to decide on. And this meant a Reliance could have been trading T plus 1 on, say, a BSE and maybe a T plus 2 at NSE, depending upon the choice of which exchange decided to adopt which security into which cycle. This created a bit of a confusion because obviously for an investor, depending upon today the flexibility of trading on any exchange post the interoperable framework that was implemented in India in 2018, where we were again one of the pioneers and the way interoperability was implemented, it would have created a confusion, and the flexibility of which security he's trading in the settlement cycle would have come in. That's where a lot of deliberations happened. Exchanges came together and they agreed, and then it was decided by the exchanges in India to have, they jointly published a month-wise rollout plan to move all securities under T plus 1 settlement in a gradual manner. And to give industry the time to adopt to this change and to design their systems accordingly, the way this plan was designed was on the basis of descending order of market capitalization, the last 100 securities to move in on February 25th. Subsequently, every month, the last 500 securities from there on will continue to move into a T plus 1 cycle in a gradual manner. This technically gives, if you look at the investor base that you may have on this call currently, and for an institutional investor base, what this does is this gives them almost, for the custodians, the brokers, and the investor community, to get ready for a complete or effective rollout of settlement of T plus 1, rollout of T plus 1 settlement, almost minimum 8 to 9 months for them to get ready by the time the top 1,000 or 2,000 securities actually start coming into the fray of T+1. So all securities effectively will move into T+1 settlement effective early 2023. One of the questions that gets continuously asked is, what were the drivers behind India's decision to reduce this settlement cycle? Well, a long settlement cycle is obviously something that nobody wants. Well, T+2, is it a long cycle or not a long cycle, is a question that all of us can ask, given that we will be one of the first few countries. I think China does have T+1. And if I'm not wrong, a couple of countries, I think one is Turkey, which has T+1 to some extent. But shorter settlement cycles and compression, in our view, promotes better capital utilization. Technically, an investor has one more extra day of rollover available. His margins, which are blocked with the clearing corporations, get freed up. His settlement proceeds come to him one day earlier, allowing him to utilize his capital much better and much more efficient when it is coming back to him on T+1 as vis-a-vis a T+2 cycle. Reduced outstanding risk exposures, because if you've got your trade outstanding out there, finally you're relying on a broker, you're relying on a clearing corporation to ensure that your securities and your funds are received by you. So that T+1 also compresses the risk exposures that the investors carry, and obviously efficient and early realization of funds and infusion of liquidity. So I think these are some of the key factors, and plus it was also very well supported by advancement in efficient payment and settlement systems, which makes T+1 possible. Besides, CCPs in India currently permit early delivery of payment. So early paying is a very important factor, which is today available in our ecosystem. And with early paying, exemption of margins for such early paying actually facilitates, and we see that most of the transactions, in fact, almost up to 90 to 95% of the trades today in the T+2 scenario as well, end up getting delivered to the clearing corporation on T+1 itself, T as well as T+1 itself. So we noticed that at present, so I think the path for T+1 was already carved out a couple of years back with the advent of early paying in a big way. And that's where I think the focus to get proper settlement cycle compression in was there from the regulators as well as market intermediaries. And that's the brief background of how we have evolved from a T+2 cycle, which was there since last 19 years, now into a T+1 cycle. With that, I think with the brief background, and just to also mention, Uma ma'am, you did mention, so NCL as well as ICCL, both the clearing corporations, have gone live effective February 25th. And while the securities which went in the first phase were the bottommost 100 securities with in terms of market capitalization, but we were fortunate enough to have trades come into the T+1 securities right from the first day, and plus it also included not only trades which were to settle within NCL, we also had trades which were required to settle between the CCs. So we ended up in a gradual manner, in fact, testing out all our systems with respect to T+1 as well as T+2 simultaneously coexisting. And obviously in 23, T+2 will demise out and we will only be on T+1. But we have been successfully able to settle all trades that have been done in the T+1 environment till date, right from 25th of February. With that, I would like to hand it over, Vineet, over to you. Thank you.
Sujit will move next. I think you're on mute, Sujit.
Sorry. Good afternoon. Thank you, Uma, Vineet, and Vikram. Thanks for that insightful and detailed background to the T+1 that connects most of the thought that everyone would have on the panel and as well as the listener. I just want to complement what you said by adding few more points first before I move to start my presentations. So SEBI announced this T+1 on 7th September. with an ambitious plan to go live on 1st Jan in the initial stage. That was just about 115 calendar days. I think that was a very, very brave approach. But as you explained, Vikram, the optional route played quite a spoil spot. And it was with the help of the complete industry participation, I think, and what key ask was presented to implement with technical and operational study. Everyone agreed that T+1 is inevitable. And as you explained, it also has several advantages to it. So the best thing to happen, which has happened thereafter, and on 8th November, when all the market intermediaries came together to announce a new plan using a soft launch, bottom-up approach that helps industry-wide, all the effort that was carried out to get the extension done. And we got another 55 days of extension to go live by 25th of February. So in reality, if you look behind, T+1 was made live in 170 calendar days. In these 170 days, we had Diwali, we had Christmas, we had so many budget. Everything was accounted. So in terms of all the efforts and input that went through to make this platform go live was incredible. India did it again after interoperability. So all kudos to SEBI, exchanges, CCPs, depositories who contributed. I would like to share one famous proverb here, which industry were appreciative of, that says that if you want to walk fast, some may walk alone to reach the destination. But if you want to walk far, we must walk together. And here, if you notice with the change and with a uniform approach, I think we have reached far in short time. That was the success that we observed. But we are yet to reach the destination, the final milestone. Let me explain why I'm saying that we are yet to reach the destination and final milestone. This is particularly given the fact that we are yet to crunch processes, optimize controls within the set timeline. And there is no room for any margin of errors because we are working in a live environment and we cannot afford to destabilize the platform that has a rich history behind. Now here, every stakeholder is key asked to make this process work. Effectively, every stakeholder wants to contribute. So from SEBI to clearing corporation to depository participant to client to custodians to broker, everyone, and investor, how can we forget that? Client key asks are actually divided between different participant category, from retail to prop desk to domestic institutional to FPI. Everyone has their own agendas and key asks. The key to this success is because we work together and we work far to deliver the milestone successfully, it's very essential that CCP carries the major burden to manage the key asks from all the stakeholders. And I must agree, Vikram, that it's not easy. It's been the most tough task. And on top of that, you have SEBI to also sign off on how the processes are going to be crunched or optimized without compromising the controls that exist today. This is given the fact that India is the largest market, so it cannot be taken lightly in terms of whatever we want to achieve here. Given that the background, the reality is also that CCP has a 360-degree view, and they can exactly know how the market participants are contributing and how their key asks could be managed. Now, let me give you the holistic view of the ecosystems from the broker and trading perspective, which is on the other side that CCP sees. Basically, we place all the participants into two categories, institutional and non-institutional. Institutional clients are at disadvantage compared to non-institutional clients mainly from the point of view of that they are not allowed to do netting, they are not allowed to do short sale. Even though this is a rolling settlement cycle, they do not get benefit of squaring of the position on same day. Each leg is considered to be settled on gross basis. Further, within the institutional client, FPI are at disadvantage compared to domestic institutional client, as the domestic are able to trade just in INR without any FX involvement, unlike FPIs. Also, local custodians are able to fund the trades of domestic client intraday or overnight, which is not permitted for FPI. Here, to manage the expectation from FPI, local custodians are taking a major burden in the whole process that Vikram, you touch upon from holistic view of the ecosystem that exists today. Most of it could evolve around trade allocation, trade confirmation, and here trade confirmation is worked upon with several participants, multi-parties like global custodians, client middle office, broker, and CCP. They are at the center of controlling this whole trade confirmation process and then deciding obligations around the settlement cycles. So theoretically, when you look at from the broker perspective, broker job is only for an execution of institutional trade. They are not mandated to settle the trade, as SEBI has mandated this responsibility with local custodians. However, we have also noticed for various reasons, those local custodians are unable to accept the obligation due to, I won't say the mismatch, because gone are the days when manual activity caused mismatch, but it was more to do with the cut-off time involved in arranging fund, security delivery, exact amount of security delivery, and an early paying to run. So far what we have noticed that if those obligations are not made by local custodian, then broker are being asked to step up and take the obligation, as the settlements are guaranteed by CCP. So here, broker are sharing a major burden to facilitate overall settlement of the cycle by taking the obligation. And not only that, broker have been penalized, though it's a small amount, but they are still being penalized for managing the hand delivery or DVP on behalf of a client. And if settlements are completed, well and good. But if for whatever reason settlement fails, the burden is still on the broker. Let me explain that in a while. So we did some data crunching and we identified today potentially DVPR or hand delivery are about 0.06% of the trade under T+2 cycle. Now, if we were to follow the current trade confirmation cutoff, which is 7:30 on T day, most likely it could be a big challenge from a broker community that local custody will be able to confirm the trade. And therefore, we are expecting very high DVP cases. This is still fine enough to manage. We would be prepared as a broker community, but there are some risks associated with this situation. So let me present what risk I'm referring here. It is possible that today FPIs are not only engaging foreign broker, but they have a equal amount of respect and engagement with our local brokers. Imagine a situation that local broker with a high amount of DVP is not able to arrange fund. The immediate impact is potentially linked with broker default and their terminal getting blocked for the next trading cycle. It's a big concentration risk in a way that FPI would slowly move towards dealing with only foreign broking house, which none of us, including regulator, want. So it's very essential that appropriate decisions are being made, which thankfully CCP and the regulators are looking into the FPI key ask and salvaging situation on behalf of local custodian as well as broker community. Having said that, I think let me repeat the famous proverb that if you want to walk fast, some may walk alone to reach the destination, which we do not want. And if we want to walk far, we must walk together. And this is the condition and situation that prevails today. We are yet to be there. T+1 is successfully launched, but when all the participants come into play, it would be worth seeing to what extent and how we are able to successfully deliver this in coming month. I think the testimony could be sometime in June, July, when FPI would start participating, or domestic institutional would start participating into T+1. With this, I pause here and over to Viraj.
Thank you, Sujit. That after that crisp, oversight that you and Vikram provided, I feel there may be hardly anything that you've left it for me to say, but still I'll endeavor. So thank you, SBI-SG and Uma ma'am, for inviting me to be a speaker on a topic which I believe will evolve many more times across the globe as the market aims to be more efficient. In my opinion, time to settlement equals counterparty risk. Vikram talked about the T plus and less, and that's why the counterparty risks were higher toward T+2. Whereas margin requirements designed to mitigate those risks, namely the counterparty risk, represents cost to members of stock exchanges and thereby the investors. So these are interlinked, which is basically the cost to the members as well as the counterparty risk. We heard how reduction of settlement cycles is an effort to reduce risk, strengthen and modernize securities settlement while removing inefficiencies. In India, we've experienced this after T+2 was introduced in 2003, and as Vikram rightly mentioned, the Indian capital markets increasingly became automated, introduced interoperability, almost online margining system, added investor base, amongst other developments. While it has increased costs, it has also resulted in greater confidence, higher volumes by multiplier times, besides increased capital formation. At a global level, India achieved T+2 in 2003, while the US rolled it out in 2017. The resulting benefits in both locations were of accelerated settlement, reduced market risk, low margin requirements, settlement optimization, intraday settlement of money, and a closer integration of processes, lower cost of capital being the standouts. As is widely acknowledged, the most logical way to reduce the risk is drive margin requirement is to shorten the settlement cycle. In fact, risk model stimulations which have been carried out in the US, etc., shows that the volatility component of margins could potentially be reduced by 41% by moving to T+1, assuming current processing and without any changes in the client behavior. That's a significant drop. In our view, introduction in India of T+1, which has no parallel precedent to speak of on the lines that we are contemplating, is aspirational by all securities market as more investors flock to capital market. In India, we've seen a surge in the investor base in the last 2 years, increased capital market participation by FPIs, retail investors, mutual funds, AIFs, PMS, PEs, increased wealth creation by IPOs and new products. So all these new opportunities also adds new forms of challenges. I'm sure that many of the attendees who could be either brokers, retailers, or even, let's say, the processing people like custodians have decided to go home late, given the high volumes which have been, the bane in the market. Everybody I hear says, well, I work a little more. All this is unstoppable as we want to be a $5 trillion economy. So capital markets, in my opinion, will play a pivotal role and thus require more engagement in settling trades. Acceleration of settlement cycle would have an upstream and downstream impact on other parts of the market structure, including derivatives, securities lending, foreign exchange, collateral processing. In a sense, the evolution of settlement to a T+1 converges with the developments of fintech revolution, of which we keep hearing more often now than probably a few years ago. This brings us to the point, are market participants prepared for such a significant change, as it would require a fundamental restructuring of operational processes through the industry? Some of the possible outcomes, in my opinion, are the challenges to forecasting of finance. I think one of the significant barriers is it does not allow for predictive financing needs of clients. In other words, clients generally will not know their financing needs for a given day until trading has stopped, which means securing end-of-day funds or determining intraday investments will be difficult and excessively expensive. Indian investors, whether retail or PMS, AIF, and AMF, are primarily those whose core competency, at least from the retail, are not necessarily capital markets. Hence, many a time they will act on instruction, not necessarily real time. This could have impacts on the settlements. At the institutional level, the challenges could be reconciliation related. There are several challenges for clients with the reconciliations to move to T+1, as it would need or necessitate the development of real-time reconciliation process and real-time stock records to comply with the regulation. Cross-border processing will add a new dimension. Now, this also has an impact on securities lending, but I'll come to that a little later. Institutional trade processing, Vikram as well as Sujit have touched it. And however, more at custodian level, the current workflow will have to be relooked. And again, this would mean complex re-engineering of trade workflows. With real-time settlement, the entire industry, clients, brokers, investors, lose the liquidity and risk mitigating benefit of netting, which is particularly critical in times of heightened volatility and volumes, if the recent volatility throughout the world is an indication of how things have to be managed. Increased fails, so my friend Sujit has already touched it, and yes, this may soar, and the number of failed trades may increase drastically. So implementing of real-time settlement would require all transactions to be paid in full by the investors with cash in hand and securities owned for each transactions at the moment of execution. This means that the investors would have to have complete confidence in the trading partner to make good the transaction, even though the person would not be anonymous to them. And given that we have seen a lot of internet-based broking houses appear, this is something which will add to the stress. Now, let me touch on a few aspects with regard to some of the specific segments. The mutual fund industry, for example, mutual funds would have to reduce the number of brokers, leading to concentration risk as well as hand delivery. It will have to undertake treasury function on T, currently T+1 for early paying. And they would also have to fund custodians on T+1 early morning. Longer working hours will add to more work. At the brokerages, additional headcount and longer working hours, retail investors may be impacted through increased cost, as increased costs at brokers on account of T+1 may get appropriated to them as well. Further, the cascading effect of auctions, 20% plus cost, will be on the buy side versus that of versus the corporation. Custodians, FBI, global custodians, local custodians may be on different time zones. Processing requirements and technology will need immediate enhancement to ensure client confirmation to global custodians or to local custodians to meet significantly short timelines. Exchanges and clearing corporations, we have a rock out there in Vikram. So we can say that to turn around obligation statement at shorter notices adds stress to the system, risk rates, cost amongst others. But I'm sure these guys will do a wonderful job as they've been doing. The other possible impacts could be the ticket size can potentially reduce as investors would initially like to be exposed to lower risk. FX risk and cost will exponentially increase. Current choice between TOM versus cash may move to cash plus T+1, resulting in cost and liquidity issues. Tax firms will have to provide tax certificates at shorter notices to enable remittances, thereby increasing cost and commitments. This is primarily for what we call the FPI. Further, regulators need to be time-bound in rolling out information. We cannot have overnight information, which would have to be processed by the industry and then, find solutions. DTCC's, experiment of starting 2 years ahead of time is a good indication of thinking early, but credit must also be given to SEBI as well as our various intermediaries. And I understand Sujito's and all the participants, whether it's SBI-SG as well as SG and NSE, were proponents of the changes needed. What we also need to do is now looking at what do we need to do to make things happen. Very simply and very quickly, we should look, as a country, we should look at short selling by institutional investors. Now this would probably, and there can be a cap on the percentage of certain settlement phase. We should look at introducing common messaging platform like SWIFT, even in the domestic sector. Today we have multiplicity of it. We should look at outsourcing of activities by custodians, which is currently not happening. This could reduce cost. We could probably look at reporting requirements for in certain cases to move from daily to weekly. Non-bank custodians like SBI-SG stockholding to be provided limited banking license. This will increase STP, significantly reduce settlement risk, and if you look at this, State Street or many of the Northern Trust, etc., non-bank are banking custodians who are not conglomerates and doing this in other markets. So why not allow this to happen in the country? We have to look at also another thing which mostly gets overlooked, and in my opinion is something that we should look as a country, is concentrate on reducing the lines of cost. Currently, we have 40 lines of cost that impacts a particular trade across multiple segments. Apart from that, a critical need is to invest in investor education and develop resources which are already in short supply in the securities services industry. And I think all of us would agree who are in the industry that the cost of resources in the last 18 months has gone up by 30 or 40%, and still there's a shortage of skilled people. Maybe this ushering T+1 will enable a full-scale development of security services industry, which currently is of $1.2 trillion size. And I'm sure as India aspires to be a $5 trillion economy, this can go to a $3.5 trillion. I think this could also be an area of growth on a professional front and skills as a new job opportunity. And this is where I feel institutions like NSE Academy, BSc, NISM, IBFA, colleges, BBF, ANMI, AMFI, universities and global institutions like TSAC, of which I'm a part of, can play a significant role in developing training and skills so that we have resources that can address the needs. And in a lighter vein, but something that we normally speak in India is Indians are masters at Jugaad. Jugaad is finding solutions at the of the toes. I think when we engage in trying to find solutions in this, sometimes we have to be careful to see that we control the risk and the cost for a successful launch. Finally, the point is rolling out T+1 an early initiative. I think time will tell how each of the stakeholders come together to achieve the perceived goals at a competitive price. And this is where I think this is where, while the clearing corporation has a primary responsibility and doing wonders, the rest of the industry will have to face the brunt with their limited resources, invest in hard look of processes to stay relevant. More and diverse work will need to be done at their end. It's necessary that industry together through multiple working bodies across operations, compliances, risk management, software vendors, drop standardized protocols. Similarly, for compliance, SSI and OPS will need to be worked out. So let's get to start the preparations now. And I think we'll once again do it. Thank you. I pass on to Devin for his interesting insights of what he's doing.
So thank you very much, Viraj, for the insight. So basically on the SBI-SG front for the T+1 initiative of SEBI, I'm delighted to share that we at SBI-SG proactively were engaged with the regulators and on multiple fronts, even before the T+1 was formally announced by SEBI. We were part of industry body and were also with the regulators, the exchanges, the clearing corporations, CCPs, inputs and insights with reference to not only the FPIs, but also the domestic institutional investors. Hence, I can say we were better prepared. Challenge. With the announcement of T+1 settlement by the regulator, SBI put in all the effort to understand various challenges that market participants, especially the foreign and institutional domestic investors, will face, propose solutions through various forums, representations with regulators to achieve the implementation target gradually, but eventually. Further, internally, we reassured and reassessed our risk parameters, invested in adding resources, interacted with clients as they too would need to do changes at their end. We also reviewed our automation and STP levels. Further instances as today reflects our commitment to bring to you a complete to improve your confidence in the markets, as well as address queries that you may have. We will use this opportunity to take back inputs to the industry bodies as well. At SBI-SG, we are systems ready for T+1 settlement processing, with the focus on full automation, STP processing of transactions to service them without any impact due to the reduced timelines. On the banking side as well, to find solution for FPI clients on the FX book, SBI-SG with its partner State Bank of India is working on extended timelines to book the value cash transactions in case the confirmation is not extended further to 7:30 p.m. on T-Day. The bank is also aligned with timelines of T+1 and will extend their full support to process it. The representations and talks are still on between various market participants, regulators, to look at certain aspects of timelines to ease out the challenges the FPI will be facing. But I'm sure that this will iron out to have a smooth transition of T+1 settlement when the top stock comes to the list of T+1 and investors start investing in them. SBI-SG will continue to update the clients and other prospective developments on this. Thank you, and over to Madam Uma to take this further to the Q&A session.
Yeah. So thank you so much. I thank both my colleagues Vineet and Devan for giving how SBI-SG is positioned, and all the panelists who have given deeper insights into this new era of T+1 settlements that we are going to get into. We're already in fact, and that's good news to know that some stocks have already been traded from the very first day onwards. We have a lot of interesting questions from the viewers. And yes, but I will take very interesting questions, but I will take the very first question, which is of interest to me as well. This goes to Mr. Vikram please tell what are the benefits in this T+1 settlement system for the retail investors?
Certainly, I think crunching of settlement cycle always has its own benefits, while we heard a lot of issues also, which we are working with the industry together to see how we can make it sail through. But from a retail investor perspective, one of the key things is about better capital utilization, as I said earlier. And if I explain it a little more, today a retail investor in the country, when he sells his shares, he actually gets his money while the clearing corporation settle it to the brokers on T+2 afternoon by around 1:30 on the outer side. Retail investor today gets to see his money either on T+2 late in the night, and in most of the cases it is generally on T+3 morning. I think the same is very true with the mutual fund redemptions or investments that they do and the redemptions that they do. The money that gets credited into their accounts is pretty much on T+3 in the morning. Now with T+1, it allows the money to come a day earlier. Excuse me, please. A day earlier, giving him that opportunity to invest his money a day earlier and get better returns on it. So at least that churn and the cycle is increasing. Second thing is that today the money, when it comes to him before the T+1, say about 1:30, and the broker gets the money at about 1:30, he has that opportunity to invest that money for a day extra in maybe a mutual fund product or offer some other product to the retail investors. I think while risk exposures reduction, maybe a retail investor is not going to look into it in that depth, but the fact remains that his exposure to the intermediary also goes down. The risk exposure also goes down. But I think better utilization of capital and early realization of funds going hand in hand is the key benefit for the retail investor today.
So thank you so much, sir. I have one question for Mr. Sujit. Will the T+1 settlement go big bang for all securities? I think we have indicated, but then I think specific answer can come from Mr. Sujit. Will it go big bang for all securities or in a phased manner?
Today, the best approach was to look at on phase manner, which has already been agreed all the way up to January 23, February 23. However, there are some thought process which are already been initiated in the industry working group, where a potential analysis is being carried out to assess whether it is beneficial to continue to run T+1 and T+2 cycle for almost a year, or we could, based on first few months of our experience, say by October or something, if we could potentially club all the schedule to make it as a shorter. So it's still in the initial stage of thought process. I think the better way to look at this subject would be only sometime in June, July, when all the participants witness the success of T+1. We witness the stability of systems, smoothness of processes, optimization of or re-engineering of activity that every stakeholders are performing. servicing to our client and investors equally. So why not? This should be the way forward. We should keep all our options open and assess how do we move forward to the final milestone. But it's too early to comment that which way to go.
Sure. Thank you so much. And of course, now the question goes to Mr. Viraj. How do you see flow of FPI in India in short term and long term? Maybe from the perspective of T+1 coming in now.
Positive. Short term also and long term also, because India is always attractive. I think one indication to look at it is when India moved to T+2, there were a lot of naysayers. That was 2003. And today, if you look at the total number of FPIs in India, from the then about 1,500 odd FPIs that we had in 2003, we are at 10,200 plus. So I'm sure we will, short term, long term, people will observe what are the impacts, but I don't see it impacting. We'll be positive.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'll come back to you with one more question. How do you see this T+1 settlement system from the return on investment perspective, particularly the fund portfolio, which used to earn 1 day's income on the margin, would be done away with, and therefore will this impact the fund performance?
So that's an interesting question, because this is more related to the mutual fund segment, which will probably see cash out one day. But look at it at a broader picture. What it means is that the investor gets an access to, he doesn't have to deposit his money for 2 days, and their confidences will grow on the market. So I only see growth. Yes, there would be, instead of a 2-day funding which was to be held, it will be 1 day. But in the larger interest of the investor, it is a good fact. They'll come back more often to the fund. The fund should feel good about it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. One question to Mr. Sujit. What should long-term investors do during bear market, especially when in need of money? I think this is a little more general than just T+1, but yes, T+1 is going to change the color.
I think NSE has mandated, and the SEBI as well, that the first and foremost thing is investment in stock market is subject to market risk. I think it's been embedded when you trade into the market, but nonetheless, key aspect is obviously in terms of the market advice, which any financial advisor, the first principle they would apply is not to put all eggs in one basket. It's been studied and taught in the school, in the business school as a first principle. So there are no rocket science behind to answer this question, but it's in a when there is a need of money, all your avenues must be assessed and identified to come to a conclusion that which avenue could be less cost or liquid in hand to opt for, rather than just looking at stock market as the single window which otherwise would deal with the risk associated, the market risk associated with such investment. So it's not something which is a simple answer, but that's the way forward.
Thank you so much. And now the question is for Mr. Vikram, because this is a specific question for the Clearing Corporation. Is there any solution from the Clearing Corporation to support FPIs in respect of challenges that they are currently facing on pre-funding for buy to meet the market pre-matching cutoff on T-Day?
So, ma'am, from a Clearing Corporation perspective, I think we work to balance out between all types of investors, and not only FPIs or not only retail or not only domestic institutions. So I would like to say that there are continuous discussions on a very regular basis that are happening within all the industry participants, including the brokers as well as the custodians. In fact, Sujit is a part of a lot of those discussions with us. along with some of the industry bodies and associations, we are trying to look at processes which impact or which will allow the FPIs and their custodians and global custodians to also align well into the process. We are looking at multiple solutions. There's the same are currently under deliberation. So that's what I just wanted to update. But maybe over a period of time, maybe very shortly, I think we'll come to some consensus on how to take this forward.
Thank you, sir. There's one more question, possibly both of you, Mr. Vikram and Sujit, can take turns to answer. Due to client location at different jurisdictions, how do the market participants deal with trade confirmation? I think this is a question which is faced by all investors.
And again, if I was to put it right, yes, it is. When you're crunching out a timeline of settlement by around 22 hours, we are talking about confirmation timelines being crunched out, the settlement timings being crunched out by almost 22 to 24 hours. Yes, there are challenges where everybody is looking at how the optimization of processes work. We completely understand, and in fact, that's what the points of discussion have been, because technically a client based in Far East or maybe out of US, the time zones may not permit them to align well with their global custodians, sub-custodians, have the FX bookings completed, and maybe also allow the custodian timeline to confirm the transactions by 7:30. So that is the point of discussion that I mentioned, that the industry is working together. There have been multiple solutions that have been on the table where we've discussed if 7:30 can become, say, 9 p.m. on T+1 night. Then we are also in discussions whether is there some way to also maintain the settlement cycle at the current timelines of 11 to 1:30, where the true benefit of T+1 accrues. By maintaining that, is there some way that we can bring the custodial confirmation timelines at 9 o'clock and allow the processing still to happen across various sections of the ecosystem to be able to settle in time? So I think those discussions are going on. So that's the intent of addressing primarily the concerns of these clients who face these challenges of confirmations on account of jurisdictions, time jurisdictions, and geographical distribution.
I would add a few more points to what Vikram said, that time zone is critical from client perspective. But some of the point what Vikram said, that role of a global custodians, locations, but more importantly, I think we should not forget that those clients are subject to FX market and liquidity. What we are looking at, and it's just not one stream which is working on it. We have, as some of you might be aware, that we as a working group work to convince FDI to open the market hours beyond the market timing that has been offered to the FPIs. FDI made a circular recently allowing client to or the banks to execute FX outside the market hour. In reality, regulators are looking at 24/7 platform, but some concerns are about the liquidity. So it's just not the time zone; it is several other aspects. It's not compressing just process. It's all about the whole ecosystem has to work together to create a platform for a successful stability of T+1, and a lot of efforts have been made as of date. We are moving in a right direction. We have time to our advantage, thankfully, with a bottom-up approach of a descending order stock going live, where we see the lesser impact first and then move towards the gradually to the higher impact stock, where the liquidity and the interest of the investors are very high. So the whole market cannot be destabilized just on one parameter. It's a larger picture that we need to work and look at, which is being handled at this point in time. We are yet to see some of the clear sign-off, but we have achieved some success, as I explained about the FX market. Now the next challenge is how to bring the liquidity, the rate in favorable, so that it encourages FPI to start looking at this subject very, very positively.
Thank you so much. Then there is another question. I think we have covered it in the discussions itself, but maybe a reiteration will help. Can we have more information on market cutoff for instructions management? Maybe Sujit can take, or even Devan can chip in.
Sure. There are different participants who are involved today, but if you were to look at the first cutoff that exists in T+2 versus T+1. So in T+1, which has gone live from 25th February, the cutoff that has been expected is 7:30 on T-Day. This is considering the fact that this impacts only a certain set of player, mainly domestic institutionals on this subject. In FPI also, we have different categories which we consider as FPI category 1, category 2, which is non-marginable, but there are FPI category 2 which are marginable as well. And there is a discussions which are on to look at that what would be the right cutoff, trade cutoff that would work for all the client. Will it be it is late in the night on T-Day or early morning T+1? I think these are all under discussion mode. Therefore, there is no clear answer. It could be anyone's guess. But CCP, all the CCP, and particularly NCL, who is front-ending this discussion with the industry forum, are kind enough to consider several options, evaluate. But at the end, they have to look at the benefit derived by all the parties, not just one party. So it's a much tougher job for them. And this could be achieved only by crunching or re-engineering some of the activity that will help them to achieve the common goal for all the players. Devan, you want to add, please?
Yeah, so a very pertinent question, basically, which starts from the concern of the all the investors, because when the transaction is executed and when it reaches the customer's end, the processing timeline and all those global custodians having a back-to-back timeline with their end customers. It's a full chain of cascading timelines which is actually there, and hence synchronizing the various locations in which the investors are, time zones and everything, is definitely a big challenge. While it's 7:30 as of now, definitely somewhere each and every market participant, I would say, that would be the exchange, the clearing corporation, the brokers, the custodians, everyone will have to align at some timeline so that it will help every participant with across the globe, basically, to address this. While different timelines are still being discussed, I'm sure that there would be a solution to this while everyone would discuss together and find out, because we have faced these kind of issues in a lot of initiatives previously as well, and I think that we as far as India is concerned will be able to find solution to this as well. And rightly said by Sujit through that proverb that we have to be together to walk far, basically. So that's the thing, and I think each and every participant is in line with each other to do the representations and try to find a solution for every investor who is investing out here in India, including the domestic investors as well.
If I were to just add one or two thought points here to what Devin said, that if you were to move this timeline from 7:30 to any other timeline, we have to keep in mind from a broker perspective that NCL or CCPs are closing their window for withdrawal of collateral at 4:30 p.m. The banks are shutting their door at 7 because they submit their CRR report to the RBI. Thereafter, withdrawal lending becomes challenge, and broker may not have any ways and means to manage DVP trade, because if this cutoff timeline is not maintained by the custodian to accept all the obligation, as I explained earlier in my speech, we have articulated that it would result into DVP that could create a more number of failure of trades and burden on the broker, and it could result into even default. So we need to be careful to decide every aspect of the play and the processes to ensure that it's a win-win platform for all the participants.
Thank you so much. One last question before we are also close to our timeline. So in fact, we crossed our timeline. So one last question, but it's a very interesting question. I would request all the three panelists to reflect on this. This shift makes India a pre-funding market, which is affecting the global investors. What is the plan to address this? Maybe we can start with Mr. Vikram, then go on to Mr. Sujit, and then finally Viraj.
Ma'am, I think this is something that I just mentioned also, because that is what the industry is working towards, and clearing corporations are also working with the intermediaries and the brokers to see how we can, while still we have the cutoff times which are way beyond the market close at about 7:30, we can take a look at it at 9. But yes, the concerns around FX liquidity stay, and that is where we as an industry are working towards with the brokers and the custodians to see how we can further facilitate this entire process such that that fear of pre-funding does not stay. So that's the entire focus of our discussions that are going on currently.
Yes, this was one of the key asks from the FPI client from day one for not make India pre-funded. Now, let me just deep dive from a perspective that FPI's clients are serviced by global custodian, about 70 to 80% of them. And there are some clients who come directly to trade into India. Now, those clients who use global custody route or have a more complex structure behind them, it's a bit difficult to make sure that the allocations are completed, contracts are booked, how much money to transfer. And if there is no liquidity at 7:30 and there is no FX favorable rate, they carry huge risk on settling the trade. This was one of the major concern, though a lot of discussions have been on, which I briefed earlier with RBI, with FIDI, to understand what could be done, how the platform could be eased to make that facilitate. But if FPI pre-funding is to be respected, the only point is to make T+1 cutoff on T+1, not on T day. That's the only solution. Because we have to cover not only the West client from West during the night time, but we have to also catch up with Far East client who are shutting their office much before that 7:30 cutoff. So the success lies what could be the right time. And this is the question that everyone is trying to address at this point in time. And the discussions are as much as gap of 30 minutes as a part of the cutoff, whether it should be 9:30, 9, 8:30. So every aspect has been challenged, discussed, analyzed, and there is no answer yet. I guess it's still some more wait, but we would know pretty sure by month of April, having discussed. Some of the other discussion that has been carried out is how does the trade allocation be optimized? But there are other processes which involve, we have engaged with DTCC to analyze what product they have, what they are doing, how we could make that platform more leverageable in favor of making the process work. But when it comes to pre-funding, the only answer is trade confirmation has to be on T+1. It cannot be on T-day.
Right. I think, in addition to what Vikram and Sujit shared, yes, I think this will become a pre-funding market, but let's look at the overall picture. So while any change, significant change like this will definitely lead to processes change or operational changes, as also the cost changes. What also has to be looked at is, while we become a pre-funded market, to a large extent, we can say right now, most of the FPIs into India already, either delivering the securities or the cash ahead of time. So while it does that, it also gives the benefit of lesser exposure to FX volatility because you're getting your money out faster also, and your transaction completes faster, or your securities come early. So it is giving away from one hand and taking it from the other one. So overall, I think, when we look at other aspects that foreign portfolio investors do not earn interest on the balances in India, they are able to get their funds out also almost the same time as in the past. So processes and operationally it will be a challenge, but I'm sure, as Sujit rightly mentioned, over a period of time, through a lot of learning, we will sharpen these processes. We also have to look at greater STP, and that has to be the way forward.
Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah, Sujit.
So I would just add one point that US, which is also moving towards T+1, it's not a direct comparison, but they have launched 2-year plan. Okay. And for India, we have made T+1 live in 170 calendar days. That's quite a big achievement. And I think the soft launch and graded move to T+1 has helped us build the confidence. And I think in coming days, we will build more and more confidence to have success of T+1 seen.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you bringing that US angle as well, because yes, that's the way forward. There's no doubt about it. And being a commercial banker, I think at this point I'm possibly getting a little philosophical, but I'm thinking about my 3 decades plus service in the commercial banking era, having seen how the commercial banking in India had evolved over a period of time. We used to put our shutters down at 2 o'clock every day, no customers allowed, and then we have increased the customer hours to 4 p.m. We are available 24/7 on multiple channels, be it ATMs or the online, and then there have been such a huge revolution in the payment space with UPI coming in. So directionally, I must say, like Mr. Vikram has mentioned, where we used to be T+17 or something in the manual times, now T+2 has become the norm, and T+1 is going to become the norm shortly. And how we will achieve this, all these, short-term problems that we are facing, like are we going to be a pre-funded market? Are we going to be, how are you going to do the settlement instructions? The banks will close, Forex market will not open, I am in a different time zone. All these things will possibly one solution that can address all these questions is how best we can make it all automated, so that, like they say, investor is one, where he puts his money to work when he is sleeping. And I think that should happen when we are all sleeping. Money should work for us, and that would be the real investment world. So very interesting, engaging discussions from all our panelists on a very important and topical subject. Thank you all so much. I think we have crossed our timelines. Almost 20 minutes out of whatever is the scheduled time. So it's time to propose a vote of thanks, and thank you all so very heartfully, because even I have, of course, we have read something from the documents, we have participated in some of the discussions, but this discussion, in fact, opened up a lot of angles, and how you all who are involved very deeply in formulating this system have worked closely, and it's amazing that it's just 170 calendar days that India has been able to achieve this milestone. And I'm sure that as we go ahead, we will be able to smoothen the processes very fast. I thank you all so much. It's my privilege to have been a host of this webinar on behalf of Team SBI-SG, and to have a very distinguished panel of speakers associate with us at a very short notice. I place on record my sincere thanks and appreciation and gratitude to Mr. Vikram Kothari, Managing Director, NSE Clearing Limited, Mr. Sujit Kadakia, Managing Director, Head of India Office, Society General Securities India, Mr. Viraj Kulkarni, Founder, Pivot Management Limited, and CEO of TSAT, and my colleagues, Mr. Vineet and Mr. Devin, who have supported as well as given an overview to our clients, more particularly on how we are ready in tackling the current situation. I thank all our distinguished guests who have joined us from various locations, stayed put beyond the scheduled timing across the globe and encouraged us in our initiative. I thank our technology team, Mr. Ramjit and his team at VC Now Events. I also thank my team, SBI-SG, and congratulate them on this unique attempt to provide insights on T+1 settlement system to our valued clients and connections. Yeah, in fact, there is a huge team which has worked behind the screens to make this event possible at SBI-SG. I thank them all. I thank one and all, and hope to come back to our viewers, our customers, with more such events in an endeavor to provide useful insights and ideas on various topical subjects. Thank you all so much. Stay safe, stay healthy. As they advertise now, I think maybe the most of COVID is behind us, and just a trace of it is there, and we should overcome that. And very shortly we will be meeting in person, and maybe far less virtually, but then virtual meetings are also very, very convenient. I hope to meet you either physically or virtually very shortly. Thank you all so much. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Take care.